Hey everyone, welcome back. In this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use Fusion 360 sheet metal here to design a custom cardboard box just like the one seen here. All right, and stay tuned. In the next video, I will show you how to manufacture the cardboard box using a laser cutter. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first thing you want to do is let's go ahead up to File and start a new design. All right, and we're going to start here with the sheet metal tab, and we're going to come here to sheet metal rules and click there. All right, so now we need to create a new rule for cardboard because most of these are metals and we don't have one for cardboard. So come on over here, we're going to use inches. So click on any of these with inches like steel or aluminum or whatever. So I'll go here to steel and we'll go to new rule. Okay, and we're going to just switch this now and make it say cardboard in inches. All right, now for our thickness, we're going to set it, the cardboard that we're using is roughly 2 millimeters in thickness or 0.076 inches. Okay, our K factor, we don't need to worry about that. That is a physical property of metals. So we can skip there. For meter rip seam gap, we'll use thickness. Okay, and then this is important for our bend radius. Because this is cardboard, we can make very tight, sharp bends. So we're going to set our bend radius here to 0.01 since this is not, thick metal. We can get away with a very small bend radius. All right, all of these other values, actually let's set this to straight. All of these other values look good for our corner conditions. All right, for our two bend intersection, we're just going to set our relief shape here to square and our thickness here now to 2.0. All right, once you have all of this, go ahead and select save and you'll see your new rule over here. All right, once that's done, go ahead and close this guy. All right, the next thing we're going to do is create a new component. Anytime you start a new sheet metal, you select a new component, and we got to change our sheet metal rule now to our new rule. So select cardboard and select OK. And if you notice over here, we have a new component. So now we're going to create the bottom of our box. Okay, so we're going to do this, we're going to start a sketch here. And we're going to come up and we're going to grab a center rectangle to make this box as symmetrical as possible so we can mirror features later. Okay, we are going to use a center rectangle. Okay, and over here in the blue highlighted box, I'm going to type that in as 2.5. I'm going to hit the tab button now. Okay, and we are going to set the width of our box here now to be 5.5 inches and then hit enter. All right, and that's it. That's the bottom of our box. We'll select finish sketch and we can extrude this, but we can also, since we've already specified a thickness with our flange, with our rule, we can just come over here to flange and select right there. And all of this stuff looks good for now and select OK. All right, and now we're going to go ahead and start making the sides of our box here. So I'm going to kind of just move this over in a good position and zoom in. All right, and we're going to come back to flange, and we're going to be using flange a lot. So I'm going to click on this edge right here. Okay, and this edge right here. And I'm just going to start dragging him up. Okay, and I want that height to be 1 inch. Okay, and I want this height to be 1 inch from this inner face here. Okay, so the top of our bottom of our box here, I want it to be 1 inch because if we select outer face, watch what happens. Okay, it goes down a little bit because now it's 1 inch relative to the bottom of our box. We don't want that, so we'll stick with inner, and the rest of these default values look good. Let's go ahead and select OK. All right, so now we need to create some flaps that fold over and back inside to our box. So to do that, we're going to come on up back to our flange tool and we're going to click there and click on that edge. And we're just going to move these out and we're going to type our distance in here to 0.375. And we want this distance to be relative to this outside face. So we're going to switch it from inner to outer face and that'll shrink them down a little bit. Okay, and that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and select OK. And now if you zoom in here, okay, this radius right here, represents that zero point zero 0.01 in our rule that we set up. Okay, and remember, for cardboard, we can get away with very sharp radiuses. For different metals like aluminum, especially aluminum, you want to use a thicker radius. It's kind of a physical property of the metal that you need to consider the minimum bend radius. Okay, all right, so let's move on. All right, so now we need to create the flaps that are going to go down and touch or almost touch this surface. So let's come on over here to flange. We're going to click on that edge, and we're going to click on this edge, and we're going to come all the way down. Okay, and we can specify our distance, how far we want to go here, and we can just touch this surface and it will go all the way down. Okay, now notice it leaves a little bit of a gap here, but what happens if I change this to outside here? Or what happens if I change it to inside? Okay, or adjacent. So there's some different settings we can work with. And the secret to using sheet metal or making cardboard boxes is to make sure that your flanges that you're making or your flaps never touch each other. You always want a small clearance gap. Okay, so nothing is touching. And I'll talk more about that here coming up. So let's come back, set that to inner. Okay, and notice now they're touching. We don't want that, right? So let's go to outer now, and now it creates this gap, or we can set it back to inner, and notice our distance here. It's not 0.924. Well, we can just set that to be 0.92, and then we have this nice little gap here that we want. Like I said, we don't want things touching. All right, so this looks good for both of them. All right, I'm going to select OK. All right, so now we need to make two holes, okay, on this bottom surface for two tabs to go into, because we're going to make two tabs later. So we're going to start a sketch on this face right here, okay, and I'm going to zoom in, and we're going to just come on up and with our rectangle, and we're going to create a box kind of like that, okay, and the same thing down here, sort of in this area right here. So you get something that looks like this, okay, and we're going to dimension them to be from this edge 0.375 or 3/8 of an inch. Same with this side, 0.375, and then we want this to be roughly, oh, we'll say 0.5 inches. Same thing here, 0.5 inches. All right, and now we're going to zoom in so you can see from this distance to this distance, we want it to be 0.02. And to make things equal on the other side, we're going to do it over here as well. Okay, so click here and click there, 0.02. Okay, let's come over here and do the same thing now, there to there, 0.02. And from over here to there, it's 0.02. All right, and now we're looking pretty good. We've made the squares and they're both equal distance from the edges. So let's go ahead now and finish our sketch. And you're probably kind of wondering, how are we going to extrude this? We can't see in here. So we can just turn the visibility off on our body, come on up to extrude, and just click there, 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 and there. Turn our body back on, visibility, and we're going to cut, okay, a distance all the way through. Okay, set it that to all, make sure it says cut, and select OK. Okay, so now we have these holes in the bottom of our box for the tabs to go into. All right, so now let's go ahead and create those tabs that are going to go in these holes here. So we're going to come up, grab our flange tool, we're going to click on this edge right here. All right, and we're going to set our full edge now down to 2 offsets so we can create sort of a custom tab. All right, and I'm just going to kind of move reference 1 over here, and then reference 2 over there. All right, and then I'm going to pull this, and you're like, wait a minute, that's going the wrong way. We don't want it at 90, we want it at 0. So now we can pull the tab down so we get something like this, right? So, but you're like, hey, that looks a little small. So we can fix that. So let's come on over here. Let's um, come on over here where it says selected for reference to. Okay, we're gonna want to go ahead and now and click this face over here. Okay, actually let's just clear them out. Okay, and just now let's click there for reference 2, and then for reference 1 we're going to move it right over here. Okay, all right, and now if you look, okay, remember they said the secret to good sheet metal is to make sure nothing is touching, and this is touching, so we don't want that. So we're going to offset it here, minus 0.02. Okay, oops, not that one. All right, and then the other one, the same thing, minus 0.02. All right, and now look at our height. It's at 2. So I don't want our height, so I'm going to select this surface, and now it's even with that surface. However, I like to make my tabs a little bit longer. So I'm going to just specify something like, oh, 0.09. Let's see what that does. And a little longer, and that looks probably pretty good. Okay, so 0.09, remember that when we go to make our next one. I'm going to select OK, and we're looking good. Now let's go make our other tab over here. So we're going to basically repeat the same process. We're going to click on that edge. Okay, we're going to come to full edge, select 2 offsets. Okay, I'm going to go ahead now for reference 2. I am going to select this, let's see here, this surface, and for reference 1, the other surface. Okay, and then let's see here, we need to make sure our height, okay, and then let's go ahead now and pull this guy, and we need to set that to 0. That's what I was looking for. Okay, and then for the length of that, I'm actually going to go ahead now and click on that guy, and remember we set it to 0.09, so we're going to set it to 0.09, and then we want to offset these, remember, so they're not touching. So minus 0.02 there, and minus 0.02 there. And now, when we look at it, it's pretty equally spaced, all right? And nothing is touching, which is what we want. So I'm going to go ahead and select OK when we're done, and now we have both tabs, and we're looking pretty good, okay? All right, and finally, you're like, well, don't we need to make 2 more over here? And we do, and to do that, we can just use the good old mirror feature. So we're going to come on up here to create, come to mirror. Okay, we're going to select this tab, and these extrusions here. And we're going to select our mirror plane as this one right there, and then select OK. And if you did everything right, you should now get them on both sides. All right, that's pretty cool. Now, from here on out, it's pretty important that you double check everything to make sure nothing is touching. And to do that, you can come on up here to modify, and you want to select unfold, and it's going to ask for a stationary entity. So I'm just going to select this top surface and then check unfold all bends and make sure everything is unfolding. If it's not unfolding, then you have pieces of cardboard or sheet metal that are touching one another, and you don't want that. You always want a small gap between all of your folds and bends and flanges. All right, so I'm going to hit cancel. So if yours is not unfolding, you have to go back and fix that. You have a piece that is touching. All right, so that's very important. So every time you do something new, add a new flange, make sure it's unfolding. All right, or you're going to have a hard time going back and fixing things later. Okay, so I'm going to hit cancel, and let's move on. All right, so now we want to go ahead and create the front edge of our box. So to do that, okay, I'm going to basically come back to our flange tool. I'm going to select right there. And for now, I want you to set this to inside and then pull up and watch what happens. Okay, you'll notice here that, well, our flanges are combined here and touching. We don't want that, okay, because our box will not unfold. So let's move it over to the side here and you can get a better view. Okay, I'm going to set this now to outside and you can see that it's better, right? So unfortunately though, it's still touching. So now let's set this to adjacent, and that's what we want. We want a nice clearance gap between our flanges or flaps of cardboard here. Okay, so that looks good. Now let's make a couple other changes here. We want to set this now to symmetrical, and now we have these arrows where we can customize the sides of these. So I'm going to move it in, and I want this face, okay, right here to be in line with this face. So I'm just going to click there and it will snap right to it. Okay, and now let's go ahead and set our height. I'm going to move this up. Okay, and I want my top height to be in line with this face right here. So I'm just going to click on it and it's going to snap to it. Okay, but here's the thing. I don't want it to rub up against this face, and that's bad. Okay, so we have to set our height a little bit lower. So I'm just gonna, take off something a little less and make that point like maybe 0.92. Okay, and then that should do it. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and select OK. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and create some flaps on the front of our box. They're gonna fold into this hollow cavity right in here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. We're going to come back to flange. I'm going to select this edge right here. Okay, and I'm just going to sort of drag it in. All right, make sure it says adjacent. All right, it's very important that you do that. Okay, and notice we got a nice little gap there, so we're not touching there. And we have a nice little gap here and a gap here, so that's good. So I'm just going to go now and set this back to a distance of 1 inch. Okay, and I'm going to come and do the same thing on the other side here. Okay, click on that edge, get a plus sign, and there we go. We got 2 of them now. All right, and we have both of them set to 1 inch, and we're going to select OK. And as I told you in the past, okay, come up here real quick, go to unfold, check to make sure everything is unfolding and we're looking good so far. I'm going to hit cancel here. Okay. All right, so now let's go ahead and make the back of our box. And instead of redoing everything we just made, we can come up to create and go to mirror. All right, and make sure it says features here. And we're going to click on that guy and that guy. And we got to select a mirror plane right there and select OK. And we're good. Okay, now we have the back of our box done. All right, so now let's go ahead and make the lid of our box. So once again, let's come up to flange. We're going to select this edge right here. Okay, and we're just going to start pulling it out. And right away, you probably see some red flags here where our flanges are touching, and we don't want that. So we're going to set this now to symmetrical, and we're just going to back it off a little bit. And we want it to come to this face, so I'm going to snap to it, but I don't want it to touch it. So I'm going to back off the distance so that it just says like 2.28. Okay, so that looks pretty good. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and just kind of keep this coming out, and I'm going to just keep bringing it out and set this to this face right there. Make sure it says adjacent. Okay, and you're good to go. Go ahead and select OK for our lid. Okay. All right, so once that's done, I want you now to go up to modify and do an unfold to check to make sure everything is unfolding. I'm going to move on to save time. All right, so now, all right, after you've unfolded it, I would like you to make a part of this lid that's going to come down in front of this face with some flaps that are going to fold again into this hollow cavity. So let's start that. Let's come to flange, okay, and I'm going to go ahead now and select that edge and just start pulling it down. Okay, and here's what's cool. If you remember this one, I'm going to select this point right here. I'm going to snap to it. So now it's at the same level as this other flange, which is perfect. We don't need to change the height at all. Okay, but we do want to check to make sure that there's a nice little gap between them. Okay, and it does look like we got a nice little gap, so we're doing okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and select OK. Okay, make sure that says adjacent and set OK. Now we want to basically create some flaps that are going to extend out from this face and fold around inside here again. So to do that, I'm just going to go ahead once again, come back to flange, and I want to click this edge right here. Okay, I'm going to start moving it, and you're like, oh, that's not the right direction. So let's change 90 here to 0. And now let's start pulling it out, and let's snap to this face right there. Okay, because that's about where we want it. But once again, we want it to come out a little bit further. So I'm going to set this to 1.73. Okay, and let's just go with 1.75. Okay, and let's do the exact same thing for the other side now. Okay, so I'm going to hit the plus sign. I'm going to hit on this edge, and it's going to automatically make that one 0.1752. Make sure they say adjacent and select OK. Okay, and now we need to create one more flap in this little hollow cavity on both sides. So let's go ahead and do that. Come up to flange. Okay, you can start on this side or that side, it doesn't matter. I'm going to click there. Okay, and I'm just going to start pulling it in, and I'm going to set my distance now to 1. I'm going to make sure it says adjacent. Okay, I'm going to hit my plus sign, and I'm going to do the same thing for this side. Okay, and it automatically does 1, so that's good, and I'm going to select OK. Okay, now I should have 2 flaps that fold into this hollow cavity on both sides. Okay. All right, and now that we've done all that, let's double check to make sure everything unfolds properly. I'm going to click that guy, and we're looking good. Everything is unfolding. Okay, I'm going to hit cancel. All right, now we're going to make some quick modifications to these flaps that we just made. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to come up to modify, unfold. All right, we're going to uncheck this box. Okay, and then we're going to just kind of select this guy, and then for the bends we're going to hit that one, and we're going to hit this one. Okay, and we're going to hit OK, and then we're going to come on up to modify, and we're going to throw on a fillet. Okay, so we're going to, this bottom one we're going to do as 0.75. Okay, all right, and then we're going to add another one. We're going to click up here and up there, and we're going to type in 0.125, and these little fillets will help these flaps fold in with ease so they don't get all crumpled up or whatnot. All right, once you have both those on, okay, go ahead and select OK, and then hit refold. Pretty cool. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and create 2 flanges that are going to come off this face right here, and these flanges or flaps are going to come down into the box alongside this edge right here. So let's go ahead and do that. So the first thing we're going to want to do now is inspect, and we're going to do a section analysis, and I'm going to click right there, and I'm just going to back this up so I can see the inside of it here. Okay, and select OK. Then what we're going to do is go ahead now and grab our flange, and we're going to click that edge, and we're going to start moving it down. Okay, make sure it says inside, because if you hit adjacent, watch what happens. It touches the other side. We don't want that, so set it to inside. Okay, and I'm going to have it come all the way down now, and I want it to snap to this surface right here, so it's the same height as all of our other flaps. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead now and hit a plus sign and do the exact same thing over here, and notice it puts in all my other settings as the other flap. So we're good, almost. Okay, but the problem is now is we're going to probably get an error message. So let's turn off of our section view. If you noticed here, you're going to get a warning because this flap right here is hitting right here. So we got to change these to symmetrical. Okay, so what we're going to do now is back them off so they're not touching. And I'm just going to basically have them snap to that. Okay, let's check the back one here. Okay, the back one's not touching, so we're good. Now, let's go check this other one here and set it to symmetric as well. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and move this guy. And like I said, have it snap to that distance right there and hit OK. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is let's go ahead now and check to make sure this thing unfolds properly. So I'm going to just kind of click on the bottom and we're looking good. Everything unfolds properly. Now, one of the last things you want to do is to taper. I'm going to hit OK. Right? We want to taper these flaps that we just made so that they kind of come in at an angle here. So to do that, we're going to come over here to solid. We're going to come to modify and down to draft, and that'll allow us to taper them. So for the pull direction, I'm just going to click that face, and then for the faces, I'm going to click that one, okay, and that one, and I'm going to set my degrees here to 10. Okay, hit OK, and I'm going to repeat this process on the other side. So modify, draft, pull direction, click on that face. For faces now, I'm going to click on that one, and okay, that one as well. And it's being a little stingy, so we can just come on up here to modify and redo it again. And there we go. We have them all on there. And then one of the last things you want to do is just so everything folds nice and smoothly. There's no jagged edges. We're going to put a sharp, or excuse me, a little 1/8 inch fillet here on this guy. Okay, on that guy, and on the other side as well. Okay, and hit OK. Okay, and when you're done with that, now let's come on back to sheet metal here, and let's go ahead and refold our faces here, or our box essentially. Okay, and when you're finally done, I suggest you kind of give it a look, check to make sure everything is great, and I do recommend making the following changes. Okay, so if you notice here, there's a kind of a large gap right here, and let's fix that so this big empty air gap isn't as wide. So to fix that, we can come back down to our timeline here, and let's edit that feature, and instead of 0.175, let's set that to 0.2. And notice now these sort of flanges kind of stick out a little further. Let's try 0.21. Okay, I like 0.21. I'm going to select OK. All right, and once we select OK, it's going to compute refold here, so just give it a second. And then notice here we still have a lot of room here. We have a bigger gap, and it's not as, this empty void isn't as empty. We kind of used up some of that space. So that looks good. I want to make one more change here too, and I think I talked about it earlier. I think these little tabs right here, let's have them poke through a little bit further. All right, and we can fix that. So I believe those tabs were back over here. Yep. So I'm going to flip my box over here so I can get a good view. Okay. And I'm going to right click, edit. Okay. And I want that height, okay, to be a little higher. So I'm going to pull it up, and let's just, I like that height. So 0.1, let's just go with 0.12 here. I think 0.12 should be good. And it should update in our mirror over here. So let's hit OK. And it looks good, but now we need to do this one really quick. So let's come on over here. I'm sorry, right here, and click Edit Feature and set that one to 0.12 as well. Hit OK. Okay, and now all four of these tabs are sticking out a little bit farther, which is good. Okay. And the final thing I recommend you do, of course, saving it, okay, is to give it a nice, cool sort of color here. So let's come on up to Document Settings and right click Appearance, and I'm just going to give it sort of a cardboard brown. I'm going to go to Paint and Glossy, come down to Yellow, and just drag it over. And I'm not going to make it yellow. I'm going to come over here to Edit, and I'm just going to kind of drag it to where I get a nice sort of cool cardboard brownish color there. Something like that. All right. Hit Close. All right, and when you're done, don't forget to save it. All right, and in the following video, I will show you how to go from design to manufacture so we can make this guy with a laser engraver. So please stay tuned. All right, that'll do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.